Okay. The lessons is introduction to taxation, characteristics of tax system, and tax incidents. Here, this is the lesson content. Here you have to learn what is taxations, the second characteristics of tax system, and purpose of taxations, and type of taxes, advantages and disadvantages, tax incidents, and current situation in Sri Lanka regarding the taxation. Those subtopics we have to cover within this lesson. Okay, we will move them on one by one. Then first we have to identify the concept of taxations. Then what is mean by taxation, or how do we define the taxations? Okay, taxation is the impositions of compulsory levies, individuals or entities by governments in almost every countries of the world. Taxation is used primarily to raise revenue for government expenditure, through it can serve other purpose as well. Then simply like this way we can identify the concept of taxation. It's the imposition of compulsory levies on individuals. It may be on individuals or entities by government in almost every country of the world. Taxation is used primarily to raise revenue for the government. Then there we can get the idea what is the objectives of implementing taxations. Taxation is used primarily to raise revenue for government expenditure, through it can serve other purpose as well. These are some definitions made by the several scientists regarding the how do they define the taxations. Please have a look on this. The definitions made by Adam Smith. The revenue which every individual receives from the state to whom he pays it in exchange for protection and securities. Then we can get some idea about what Adam Smith say about on taxation. The revenue which every individual receives from the state to whom he pays it. For what? In exchange for protection and security. Okay, then the second definition is made by the John Stuart Mill. He defined taxation as a compulsory levy by the government on the income individuals and business, typically to found public goods and services. Then the other one, Milton Friedman's definitions. The power to spend the wealth, not the power to spend your own wealth. Okay? See the definition, the power to spend the wealth, but not the power to spend your own wealth. The power to spend somebody else's wealth, whether it be the wealth of the present generation or future generations. Okay, please have a look on three definitions. Then there we can get some idea on the purpose of taxations and for what taxation is essential. Then we can get some idea derived by the Adam Smith and John Stuart Mill and Milton Friedman. One said that its purpose in exchange for protection and security. Other had said compulsory levy by the government on the income of individuals and business, typically to found public goods and services. Typical to found public goods and services. The other one, Milton Friedman, mentioned that the power to spend the wealth, not the power to spend your own wealth, but the power to spend somebody's wealth, whether it be wealth of the present generation or future generations. Taxation is differentiated from other form of payments, such as market exchange, in that taxation does not require consent and is not directly tied to any services rendered. And the other one, and the other important thing is, tax system have varied considerably across jurisdictions and time. In most modern systems, taxation occurs on both physical assets such as property and specific events such as the sales transactions. Then if we move to the characteristics of the tax system, looking after the definitions made by the different economics, we can get an idea about what is mean by taxation and what is the purpose according to their definitions. Then the characteristics of the tax system, that if there is the tax system is prevailing, what type of features it should have. What are these characteristics? The thing is equity. The other one mentioned that efficiency. And the other one mentioned that simplicity. Then what is these characteristics? What is mean by the tax should have equity, and tax should have efficiency, and also the some mentioned that it should be reflect the simplicity. Let's talk about the characteristics called equity. Tax system should be fair and equitable, ensuring that individuals and business contribute according to their ability to pay. Then they mentioned that characteristics should be according to the ability to pay. It reflects the equity characteristics. It should be the power of ability to pay. The principle may be reflect the progressive, proportional, or regressive tax structures. Based on the characteristics of ability to pay, we divide the some taxes. Some taxes are progressive, some taxes are proportional, or someone are regressive, and so on. These are some categorization according to the ability to pay, if not according to the equity. Based on that features, based on the equity features, it may be sometime it may be progressive one, if not, it may be the proportional one, or if not, it may be the regressive tax structures. Okay, next, efficiency. Tax system should be minimize distortion to economic behavior and allocate resources efficiently. Distortions such as deadweight loss should be minimized to avoid inefficiency. No? At the last lectures, we discussed how the economy is in inefficiency situation. At that lessons also we discussed at some occasions where the tax system is prevailing, economy can be in the inefficiency situations. Then if the economy is implementing some trust structures, there the deadweight loss should be minimized to avoid inefficiency. Then under that we can discuss the efficiency characteristics. The other one is simplicity. Tax system should be straightforward and easy to understand, both for two parties. They are taxpayers and the tax administrators. It should reflect the simplicity. It is one of the main characteristics. Complexity can lead to compliance cost and administrative burden. If it is not so simply, then we can see some complexity, no? Then it paved the way for the higher cost. Therefore, here it is mentioned, complexity can lead to compliance cost and administrative burden. Then the other characteristics. Transparency. The other one, flexibility and revenue adequacy. Please take a minute and read on this. What are the other characteristics? Earlier we discussed simplicity, equity, and so on. Then what are the other remaining things? What are the other remaining characteristics of a tax system? Okay, one of the other characteristics of a tax system, transparency. What does it mean? Transparency. Tax system should be transparent, with clear rules and reporting requirements. Transparency enhances taxpayers' compliances and promote public trust in the tax system. To protect what? To protect the public trust in the tax system. There should be a transparency. No, otherwise, if it is not transparent, we lost our trust. No, mainly the trust is depend only on the transparency characteristics. If not, we have a doubt whether they have a bias on some taxpayers or whether they have some disagreement on some taxpayers. Therefore, trust in the tax system is one of the main characteristics of the tax system. And the other character is flexibility. What is this flexibility characteristics? Tax system should be adaptable to changing economic and social conditions. Government may need to adjust tax policies in response to shift the economy or demographic trends. It is introduced as flexibility. And the other one is revenue adequacy. What is it? Tax system should generate sufficient revenue to finance government expenditure without relying excessively on borrowing or deposit spending. At the beginning, we discussed, when we see the definition derived by some economics, they have mentioned some objectives. And also there we saw that the some of the objectives was collecting government revenue. No? Then it should be enough. It should be enough. If the purpose is collecting the revenue through tax, it should be enough. without relying excessively on borrowing or deposit spending. Its revenue adequacy characteristics. Then another one is administrative feasibility. Tax system should be administrative feasible with efficient allocation mechanisms and enforcement procedures. Complex tax rules and loopholes can undermine enforcement effort and erode public confidence. Then there we can understand administrative feasibility also should be there. Tax system should be administratively feasible with efficient allocation mechanism and enforcement procedure. If not, complex tax rules and loopholes can undermine enforcement efforts and erode public confidence. Then we consider that administrative feasibility also one of the main characteristics of a tax system. Okay. Then like this way, we can discuss the characteristics of tax system. There we discuss the one of the main characteristics, administrative feasibility, and the other one we discuss revenue adequacy, flexibility, transparency, and the other things, simplicity, efficiency, and equity. Those things we can consider as the characteristics of tax system. Then these characteristics should be there in a tax system. Equity, efficiency, simplicity, transparency, flexibility, revenue adequacy, and administrative feasibility. Those are the characteristics of tax system. Then like this way, you have to understand what are the characteristics of a tax system. Then we move to the purpose of taxations. What are the purpose of taxations? The common beliefs of the 19th century was the tax should be used primarily to fund the government. In the 19th century, taxes should be used primarily to fund the government. Then at that time, we can understand what is the purpose. The main purpose was to fund the government. But one useful way to view purpose of taxation attributable to American economist Richard Merkel is distinguish between the objectives of resource allocation, income redistributions, and economic stability. Richard mentioned that is to distinguish between the distinguish among the three objectives of resource allocations, income distributions, and economic stability. Okay. Then the economists argue that we can see a complete among these three objectives. Then please keep in your mind the three objectives: resource allocations, income distributions, and economic stability. Then it is argued that there is a complete among these three purposes when it is implementations. If the tax system is implemented, economists argue that there is a complete among these three purposes. There may be the complete between resource allocation and redistributions. If not, there may be a complete between redistribution and stability. If not, there can be seen a complete resource allocation between the resource allocation and economic stability, like that way. They argue that the complete among these three purposes. There are like to be complete among these three objectives. For example, let's have a look on how the completes arise among these three objectives. How a completes arise. For example, resource allocation might require changes in the level or composition or both of taxes, but those changes might bear heavily in low-income families, thus upsetting redistribute goals. Then please have a look on saying in the bullet number 2. What are the complete? What are the purpose of and what type of completes is arise? The purpose may be resource allocation, and the other side purpose may be the redistributions. No, then what will happen when when the resource allocations are targeting? Then what will happen to the redistribution purpose? Then have a look whether there is a complete between these three purpose. Sorry, between these two purpose. The one is the redistribution, the other one is the resource allocation. Resource allocation might require changes in the level or compositions or both of taxes. But those changes might bear the heavily on low income families, thus it upsetting the redistribution goals. Then there we can see the complete between the two purpose. As another example, taxes that are highly redistributed may conflict with the efficient allocations of resources required to achieve the goal of economic neutrality. Then what is these? What are the? Please look at the example 2. Then see what are the two purposes we discussed earlier, and what is the complete, how the complete is arise between the what do you take from the example 2? What are the two purposes, and how the complete is arise? Here there are three purposes. Resource allocation, income redistribution, and economic stability. Then from example 2, taxes that are highly redistributed may conflict with the efficient resource allocations required to achieve the goal of economic neutrality. Then there we see a complete between the redistributions and the efficient allocations. No? Then it is said that there are some complete situations between or among these purposes that we discussed in previous slides. I think you can understand the situation. When then tax is implemented in economy, all purpose can be fulfilled all together. No? When one purpose is going to successful, other purpose can be falling down, no other purpose will not be happen. No? Then if not, they will create a conflict situation among or between the purposes. Then we move to the types of taxations. There are several types of taxations, but here I selected some of them. Basically, we divided them into two parts, direct tax and indirect taxes. Please have a look on some example for direct tax and the other sides, indirect taxes. Direct taxes, they may be income tax, capital gain tax, security transaction tax, pre-acquisition tax, corporate tax. In the other side, as a other type, indirect tax. It may be a sales tax or it may be a service one. If not, it may be a custom duty and octrade tax on that means on the goods. If not, it may be excise tax, or we can consider the value added tax also under the indirect tax. In this way, basically we can divide the tax types into two types. They may be direct or indirect. There are several types of taxation that government around the world use to generate revenue. We all know that, no? There are several types of taxations. It may be differ from one country to another country. Basically, there we see that the government implement the tax to the purpose of generating revenue to overcome the expenditure. No? This type of taxation include and direct tax we discuss, income tax and capital gain tax. Please see what is meant by income tax and what is meant by capital gain tax. Income tax. This is a tax levied on individuals or businesses' income or profits. It is usually calculated as a percentage of the total income earned and can be progressive. Higher rates for higher income or flat, a fixed rate for all income level. Then this type of situation, we can see the progressive situations. Or if not, how do we see the flat situation? It is usually calculated as a percentage of the total income earned and can be progressive. Progressive may be higher rates for high income, lower rates for lower income earners. If not, it may be a flat one. It means a fixed rate for all income levels. Okay. Then capital gains tax. This tax is applied to the profit made from the sales of assets such as stocks, bonds, real estates, or artwork. The rate can be vary depending on how long the assets were held before being sold. These types of tax, we name it as capital gain tax. They may be profit made from the sales of assets such as stock, bonds, etc. And property tax and the corporate tax. This tax is levied on the value of real estate or other type of property owned by individuals or businesses. The amount is usually based on assessed value of the property and is used to fund local government services like school, roads, and public safety. Corporate tax. What does it mean? Corporate tax. This tax is imposed on the profit earned by the corporation. Earlier we discussed property tax. No? This tax is levied on the value of real estate or other type of property owned by individuals or businesses. But here corporate tax is imposed on the profit earned by the corporations. The rate varies from country to country and can be different from domestic and foreign corporations. It is a significant source of revenue for governments and help funds public services. Okay, please have a look on the Central Bank of Sri Lanka reports and identify the different type of tax and identify the example, good example for them. Then we move to the indirect tax. Please read carefully what is this indirect taxes and how it is differed from the direct taxes we discussed up to now. Inheritance or estate tax. This tax is imposed on the transfer of wealth from a deceased person to their heirs. It is based on the value of inherited assets, can be progressive or flat. No? Then inheritance tax, the share of it. This tax is imposed on the transfer of wealth from a deceased person to their heirs. It is based on the value of the inheritor's assets, can be It can be a progressive one for their hires, or it can be a regress, it can be a flat one for their hires, depending on their interest, depending on their preferences, no? Then sales tax, also known as value-added tax. If not, as in short form, we say it at VAT, or good and services tax, GST. This tax is imposed on the scale of goods and services. It is typically a percentage of purchase price and is collected by businesses on behalf of the government. And the other one of the indirect tax, excise tax also fall under the category of indirect taxes. This tax is levied on specific goods or services, such as alcohol, tobacco, gasoline, or luxury items. It is often included in the price of the product and collected by manufacturers or retailers. Those are under the excise tax. And the payroll tax. What is meant by payroll tax? We discuss under the indirect taxes. Payroll tax is a tax imposed on wage and salaries paid by the employers. It is used to fund social security programs, healthcare, and other government benefits. Payroll tax imposed on wages and salaries paid by the employers. Those are fall under the indirect taxes category. Then value-added taxes. These two we discussed, no? These are also under the category of sales tax, value-added taxes, and goods and services taxes. Value-added tax is a consumption tax levied on the value added to goods and services at each stage of production and distribution. It is typically charged as a percentage of selling prices and the collected by business on behalf of the government. We know that we all pay the value-added tax when we are buying goods and services, no? Here it is mentioned value-added to goods and services at each stage of productions and distributions. It is typically charged as a percentage of the selling price, and collected by business on behalf of the government. Good and services tax, if not GST. GST is a comprehensive indirect tax levied on the supply of goods and services. It replaces multiple indirect tax levied by the central and state government in a country. Then custom duty. One of a type of indirect tax. Custom duties. Custom duty is a tax imposed on goods imported or exported between countries. It is based on the value or quantity of the goods and collected by customs authorities. It's introduced as customs duties. These are just few examples of various types of taxation that exist globally. At the beginning, I mentioned that some of the tax systems are differ from the other countries' tax systems. There is no unique tax system in each and every country. It may be different from one country to the other countries. But we can identify as a whole, there are different types of taxation that exist internationally. The specific types and rates of tax may vary from country to country. That is why I mentioned. Then we have to move the advantages and disadvantages of tax system. Please have a look on the side of the advantages. What are the advantages? Later we move on to the disadvantages. Advantages, fairness and equity. The other one, simplicity and transparency. And the other one, predictability and stability. And the incentivizing investments and savings as incentives for the investments and savings. We can take advantages through a good tax system. And also accountability and representations. It should reflect the accountability and representation. Those are the advantages. Then move to the other sides. Disadvantages. Disadvantages. Burden on low-income earners. No? We mentioned that the tax system can be progressive one or flat one. Then what will happen to if it is the flat one for the low-income earners as well as the high-income earners? Then there we can see the sum of the burden flows to the side of low-income earners, not the side of high-income earners. No, really, the tax is a burden for the low-income earners because their income is very low. Then if they pay the one of the percentage from their monthly or annual income, then definitely it will directly affect to their day-to-day consumption as well. Then it may be it is a burden for the low-income earners. And also the other sides we can argue that it is disincentivizing work and investments. One side it can be a incentive one. The other side it can be a disincentive one for the investments. If there is, some think that some foreigners think about the establish the mega project in our country, then if they consider about the tax system of our country is not good comparing with the other countries. They are denied to establish their project or factories within our countries. Then they are finding other options. The other options means other countries which there is a reasonable tax system. If the tax system is not the reasonable one or transparency one, the investors dislike to invest their money in that type of countries. The other one is the complexity when maybe sometimes, not maybe, mostly the complexity also disadvantages. The other one, inefficient and ineffective, and the regressive effects on consumption. We know that it can create the regressive effects, no? Basically on the consumption. The consumption also can be reduced due to the high tax rate. Then advantages and disadvantages of direct tax. Like this way, the same things we can discuss. Then see if you have not understand how it is incentives and how it is not incentives one, please have a look on the number 4. I explained that one. If you couldn't understand, please have a look on that how it become a disintensive. Why see? Directors also be used to incentive investments and savings, which can help stimulate economic growth. For example, government can provide tax breaks for investments in certain industry or contribution to retirement accounts, which can encourage individuals and organizations to invest in their areas. The government can produce tax incentives as, for example, they can give tax breaks, no? Tax breaks for investment. If not tax breaks for some selected industries or for contribution for retirement accounts, which can encourage individuals or organizations to invest their money in preferred areas. The accountability and representation. Direct tax can provide a sense of accountability and representation for taxpayers. Because taxes are collected directly from individuals and organizations, they can feel more invested in the political process and hold their elected officials accountable for how tax revenues are used. It is also one of the advantage, accountability and the representations. Please have a read on this part. They can feel more invested in the political process and hold their elected officials. Representations. So there we can see the representations. Hold their elected officials accountable for how tax revenues are used. Then disadvantages. We discussed, but take a minute and read again. Okay, burden on low income earners. Direct tax can be burden on low income earners because it takes a larger percentage of their income than it does from high income earners. I explain. No? This can make it difficult for them to make end meets and provide their themselves and their families. The other one, compliance cost and complexity. Direct tax can also be complex and costly to comply with because individuals and organizations need to keep track of their income and expenses and report them accurately. This can be time consuming and require the help of accountants and tax professionals, which can be expensive. If it is not representing the quality of simplicity, then we see that situation undergoing on complexity. No, then we see that it may be time consuming and also it requires high cost. That means they require the help of accountant and tax professionals, which can be expensive. If it reflects the simplicity, everyone can understand. No? Then they know the tax procedures. And at that situation, no needs some expert knowledge on the tax system. Otherwise, the large businessman or industry need to hire expert persons such as accountant and tax professionals. It also may be a burden on their income. No, they have to pay the wages annually or monthly for preparing tax summary and tax reports and to report their tax into the income tax departments. They have to hire the expert persons. Then if it is not the simple one, then it also can be an expensive one. Then it become a disadvantageous, inefficient and ineffective. And the other one, regressive effects on consumption. Direct tax can also be inefficient and ineffective because it can be difficult to collect from individuals and organizations who are not willing to pay or who are able to evade tax through loopholes or other means. Then we know that we can see the ineffective or inefficient one because of they are trying to go through the loopholes. No? This can lead to a shortfall in the tax revenue and make it difficult to government to fund public services. They avoid without paying taxes. Then it become a inefficient or ineffective one. Therefore, it's mentioned finally, this can lead to shortfall in the tax revenue and make it difficult for government to fund public services. At the introduction part, we discussed what is the role of the government. There we understood that how the government raised their funds for providing the public goods and other type of services which are not provided by the private sectors, and that the government needs huge capital to fund the public services. If the tax system also inefficient and ineffective, how they collect their funds. The another one regressive effects on consumption. Direct tax have a regressive effects on consumption because it can increase the cost of goods and services, which can disproportionately affect low-income earners who spend a large portion of their income on these items. Then we can see the regressive effects on consumptions based on whether they are high-income earners or whether they are low-income earners. Then we move to the advantages of indirect tax. Please have read, then you can understand easily. Already we discussed together combining advantages and the other side disadvantages. Tax participation from the entire economy. Direct tax, like income tax, are levied on people from certain income brackets only. There is a large part of the population that does not pay income tax. It is also the advantages of indirect tax. Convenient. Usually, indirect tax are very nominal and levied as a part of the purchase price of good or commodity. Hence, consumer don't feel the pinch while paying them. They have no any huge burden because of indirect tax are very nominal and levied as a part of the purchase price of a good or commodity. No tax evasions. Many people avoid paying income tax. Being a populous country, it is very difficult to track the penalized tax avoiders. However, there is no way to avoid the indirect tax. No, we can't avoid the indirect tax because when we are purchasing one commodity or service, automatically we pay the bill. No, we are not saying that please deduct the tax part. We cannot say that. Then automatically we have to pay it. Then there we see that the asset advantages, no tax evasions. It is mentioned here. Many people avoid paying the income tax, but there is no way to evade indirect tax. Disadvantages of indirect tax. It can be perceived as regressive. Indirect tax are not levied based on the income of the taxpayers. They are standard across the rich and poor, which affluent people might not mind paying indirect tax. The poor can feel the burden. I mentioned this earlier also, no? The other one, increase the price of commodity. It is also one of the disadvantage of indirect tax. It increase the price of commodities. Since the tax is included in the price of the commodity, indirect tax can result in an increase in the overall price of the goods and commodities. You know it that, no? The commodity price is the production price plus tax, no? Then the next subtopic is tax incidents. Then please have a look on what is meant by tax incidents. Tax incident refers to the distributions of burden of a tax between buyers and sellers in a market. It examined how the impositions of the tax affect the price paid by the consumers and prices received by the producer. Tax incidence. It refers to the distributions of the burden of tax between buyers and sellers. Up to now, we discuss how tax is defined and how it is divided into different forms and what are the purpose of taxations and how these purposes are making some complete situation when they are going to fulfill and so on. And finally, we discuss advantages and disadvantages of direct and indirect tax. Now we are going to move the tax incidents. No? Then have a look on what is meant by tax incidents. Tax incident refers to the distribution of the burden of the tax between buyers and sellers in the market. Okay, now we are going to see how the tax effects, tax burden or tax effects are moving into the buyers sides and the seller sides. How it is distributed between the two parties. Here two parties means one side is buyers, the other side is sellers. It examined how the imposition of a tax affect the price paid by the consumers and the price received by the producer. When we look at the tax incidence, the tax incidence depend on the relative elasticity of supply and demand for the tax goods or service. It depends on relative elasticity of supply and the demand for the tax goods or service. Then we have idea on that, how we discuss it, no? The incidence of the tax depend on the relative elasticity of goods and elasticity of supply and demand for the tax goods or services. Then we have an idea on that. Huh? Then we discuss those things.